you can kind of see the writing on the wall that Japan wants to be one of the forefronts of the integration of AI into the learning model, right? And if you look at that, it means that the education system currently, if they integrate AI where they don't have to actually change the language, because I have a personal bias. I think when your language disappears, your culture disappears with it. I might not agree with it, but I understand why Japanese people have held on to their language in its purest form and hasn't integrated additional languages in the model.
Good morning. Today we have Sasha Lee Seals, a very, very special guest. Both Tim and I, we have very special feelings for her because she's doing something incredible in her community. And also, not only there, but together with Henry, her husband, they have been working on developing the Black professionals community in Tokyo as well. So, well, when I met Sasha, I was actually overwhelmed by the energy and the passion that she shows for everything she does. And I love that because we need more people like her. But Sasha, let me tell you that she's an entrepreneur, she's a business owner as well. And she has been working on a project that, from my perspective, actually is a very good way to give back to their local community. And this is a wonderful project which Sasha is going to talk about today. So I'm not going to bother you with my introduction anymore. So Sasha, just I'll give you the floor now, and please tell us about you and about the project, how you came up with it, and why you're doing it. What are the challenges, but also the great things that you enjoy while you're working on the project.
Okay, good morning, and thank you guys so much. I am a little bit teary eyed, which is too early in the morning, but my name is Sasha Lee Seals, and this is my 19th year in Japan. I was born and raised in Jamaica and came here shortly out of university. As I told Maya and Tim, I started as an English teacher, didn't enjoy that. Then I went into the other job, which is recruiting. And after deciding to have a family, I stepped away from the workforce because I didn't enjoy how it made me feel. And when my daughter was one, I decided to make her birthday cake because I didn't want strawberry cake. And that led into starting my own business, which is a cake business here in Chiba. And one of the things I say, if you start a business, be legal, do all the right things. We're visitors, we're guests here in Japan, and as best as possible, follow the legalities. So I went ahead and made sure I had all my certifications, redesigned our house so I could have a legal office, legal bakery here in Japan, and did that for a long time. During the pandemic, my husband and I joined a nonprofit, and we were working to, I guess, bridge different cultures together using that nonprofit. And we worked there together for most of the pandemic. While I was there, I was like, I did the teaching thing. I'm a trained teacher actually from Jamaica. I did the teaching thing. I did the recruiting thing. And as an entrepreneur and having my children in public school, um, there was a gap in how children thought about their future. I think that's the best way to say it. It's like there's only one path, and if I deviate from this path, there'll be nothing but drama, and my whole life will end, right? And to me, deviation is what makes life beautiful. Those are the things that just make the tapestry of life is just so much better when there's different things involved. And as much as Japan is seen as a homogeneous, society, you can't just look and say, oh, this person is Japanese. You have to find the individuality. This person's like art. This person likes dancing. This person hikes. There's so much beauty in the differences here in Japan. So my husband and my husband is, you guys met him before. He is a human rights activist in Japan, the first nationalized human rights activist in Japan. went to our city hall and spoke about a project that we wanted to work on, which is a kids entrepreneurial program, which we lovingly call LEAD, which is leadership, entrepreneurship, authenticity, and diversity. And he pitched it to the Board of Education, like, hey, can we do this project for free for our city? And the Board of Education was excited. They went to the principals and, like, hey, members of the community want to do this project for the community. Would this be okay? All the principals were excited. They sent it out to the vice principals, sent information out. We were, of course, information was sent through the Ministry of Education, the Board of Education in our city. And within the first 2 hours of the project going out, we had 66 parents saying, hey, I want my child to be a part of this program. And we were floored. We were actually overwhelmed because this was just a project in my head that my husband pitched. And suddenly it shows that this is something that our community needs. Let me just say we're in Nagarayama City, in Shiba, which happens to be the fastest growing city in all of Japan. It was ranked having the largest population growth outside of certain cities of Tokyo in all of Japan. Our mayor lived in Texas, so he is bilingual. So in our city, I don't know, it's a little bit different. We're blessed that we moved here, but it's actually really different. So without any like have done this project before presenting this big proposal, the Board of Education says, yes, we want this program. And we did all the paperwork, sent in all the information, and we started this year in February, and we're so excited about the program. So let me tell you about like what we do. The point of the program is not to say, hey, you need this job, you need to be an entrepreneur, you need to work into a company, none of the above. It is, as the terminology is like our first semester, all we're doing is like, hey, who are you? That's it. Not telling you anything else, but who are you? And then our second semester, we will learn business practices, which starts in September. And then our final semester is knowing who you are, knowing these business practices. Let's combine them and let's start a business. Or how do you be the best member of society impacting in a company or starting your own? So um, our first class started in March, and we do the first thing we did was like, hey guys, let's make your sheet, your business card. And we had the children draw like what represented them. Of course, they had their names, but we had things like do something that is about you. So if you like dance, if you like music, if you like games. So the kids made their business cards, exchange them with each other, and we're like, hey, take your friend's business card, but remember something about them. So when you speak to them, you can speak to them about who they are, which is the basic of networking. So with a simple act of taking the time to create your business card and exchanging with each other, they've learned the basics of networking. They then did a business vision board where they talked about their habits and things that they can improve. So their habits, hobbies, and one more. It leaves me at the moment. And they listed that and then created this vision board. When I tell you, oh, it was so amazing. Like every single child, there is a very organized child where everything fit in a box. There is a one that's just haphazard all over the page. There was the amazing artist where everything looked like it could be in any, anime or manga or anything like that. And we're like, hey, at the end of the class, my husband say, do you see how different each vision board is? And that's the beauty of doing this project. So that's the first part of the project, like having them go through these processes, seeing who they are, what they're doing, what habits they have, how would that translate into other things. And then the other part is we've had people come in, business leaders come into the program and talk to the children about who they are, how they got there, what they're doing, and the impact it has on them. And in these sessions, we ask the parents to join. And the reason we ask the parents to join is children are just children, and they may not be able to make all the changes it requires for them to, change their mindset. We need their parents to be on board with, this kind of scary thing. Like, it's not just school, juku, etc., right? Maybe this different path. And we have the parents join on a Zoom when we have our speakers. And we've had the youngest politician to win his seat in Chiba come in and talk, and the boys perked up. We've had women who started their own businesses and have hired multiple people with different skill sets. We've had Japanese third culture in that she's Japanese, but she was born and raised in Zimbabwe and came back to Japan and had a terrible time, failed her junior high school, failed her high school. But she talked about her determination and how she got into university. And I think those kind of things made those parents on the phone call, on the Zoom, like, whoa, if my child doesn't go through this particular path, everything does not end. There's a possibility for my child to make a difference afterwards if they settle down, etc. So that is the core of the program, in that we can't just, my personal opinion, yes, we can just live in Japan, work, it's safe, all of those things. But how do we give back? Like, how do we make sure that our impact doesn't just rest in our respective community? As a Jamaican, I have a vibrant Jamaican community. As a person of color, I also have a vibrant community there as well. But I live in Chiba. I live with my neighbors. How do we make a difference? I might not be able, or we might not be able to create as much impact with adults, but if we can make sure that children know that who they are is enough and how they can contribute to the world is great, I think it will make an impact in 10 years. And uh, the beauty of this is we've not had one person say, hey, I do not want to help I don't want to help these children or anything like that. And that makes me so happy, knowing that people will just give of their time to come for free to give to this project to make an impact, in these children's lives, in their direction. And yeah, that's LEAD in a nutshell. That's what we do here in Nagariyama, supporting our community. We've not had a drop. We've had one child drop out, so we've had, a very low dropout rate. And it's just I think it's important to make sure that you give back, to the community that, has given us so much. It's given us, most of us are, our life. Well, all of us, our livelihood. And yeah, that's Nagareyama LEAD in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah, there are several points which you made, and I think that one of them you made actually the other day when we talked about this session, and it was about, well, yes, it's very important that we try to do things here, because this is the place which we have chosen as our home now. And if we really want to make it better, because there are so many good things here. And you mentioned, I remember that Japan has been the only home you have known after Jamaica. And I can relate to that, because it's the same for me, actually. This has been the country I know the best, probably even better than my home country now, my native country. And we have talked a lot about, and we see it all the time, of course, that some people come here, they work here, they find the negatives and complain all the time without trying to do anything to change the things that they don't appreciate that much. And I can see that in your case. And I also am sure that Henry, your husband, comes from the same place. This is something, you come from the place of gratitude and the place of positivity. And that is what got me in the first place when we started talking with you and with Henry as well. So thank you very much for mentioning that. And it just comes to show, and you are such a great example of how, if you come from those places, you can do so many things actually here and create not just one bubble, but a number of bubbles that can grow and involve more people, so that that's the way you initiate change here. And thank you so very much for making it so clear and so, let's say, obvious, because I think we need more people like you and Henry, actually.
The funny thing is, I thank you for saying that, but I think like everybody has a role to play in life. I think everybody has different things that they bring to the table. What you and Tim are doing, it's very important to the community. It brings light on people. It shows them who they are and how they impact. But as with our class, not everybody is going to be out and say things. They're the quiet builders, the ones who fund projects, who are not going to be like, oh, let me make a difference in that way. There are people who are just like solid people, you know what I mean? Just like if something happens and they're there to listen to you after you go out, try to make a difference, and you get hurt or you get a massive pushback, right? So for me, I really want to make it like clear that irrespective of the way you give back, it's important that you give back, and your giving back doesn't have to look like what anybody else is doing, right? Because we're all individuals, we all have different needs. I am loud and cheerful, and that might bother people who are more introverted and prefer a quiet thing. If you're an artist and that's how you give back that way. If you are a writer, and that's how you give back. You give back. If you're a musician or you speak whatever in whatever way you give back, I don't think it has to look as a specific way, or any one way of giving back is any more important than another way of giving back. I think as long as you're grateful for where you are and what you're doing and you do it for the right reasons, I think all of it is amazing. Because as I said in our classes, there's some kids that are super duper shy and they don't talk, but when they speak, it's powerful, right? Then you have the kid who's first one to raise his hand and is not afraid of. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. None of those options are good or bad. None of those options deserve any more praise than the other because all of them are important. So I just want to just make sure, because I don't want someone to think that because of how I give back, it doesn't look like this grand gesture, right? It doesn't mean it's any less important, right? Because a lot of grand gesture people are that grand gestures, and they do nothing afterwards. So just putting that out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And another thing is, as you said, so some kids are quiet, other kids are more extrovert, and that diversity is amazing. I also tend to think that, of course, foreigners who don't know Japan that well and who come here, I was one of those foreigners, of course, when I came here. I thought that well, the society here was very uniform, and that people, they were more or less the same. And it took me several years when I started working well, I started working full time actually. And well, we would go, to well, different social gatherings and so on and so on. And so then eventually at that point I realized that there was so much diversity under that uniformity, which is on the surface. And of course, it's difficult for people here, to show that diversity all the time. But what I love about your project is that you try to encourage that, and you create that safe environment where kids don't have to worry about showing their real selves. And I believe that if they can do that as kids and they feel safe doing that, it will help them actually be more, or let's say, braver when they grow up, and that will encourage them to be more, or to show their real selves even when they become adults. So this is something very important to me, at least, because I know that uniformity and harmony here, they go hand in hand in Japan, and they are very important aspects of the culture here. But at the same time, I have seen that for some people, that uniformity is really like a prison, and the fact that they have to conform is also very difficult for them. So I hope that well, your project is one of the first steps that will help more people be themselves and not be afraid of being hammered down, or not be afraid to actually be seen as the nail that sticks out.
I think that's important. Like, one of the things is that our program starts in elementary, grade 5, up until junior high school, second grade. And the time wasn't chosen arbitrarily. So, our curriculum development lady, she is Kenyan, but she's a nationalized Japanese citizen. She's a principal for YMCA, right? And her, based on like children developmental stages and the Japanese education system, we're like, hey, if we get these children before they get into bukatsu or any of these activities and let them know, oh, these are the areas that make me happy. When they join like club activities, etc., they will join club activities that align with who they are as a person. And maybe if they do that, they'll be more successful in the, you know, extracurricular activities. And that gives them power. And that gives them like a definition of where I should go and what I should do. So the point of was a byproduct of a program, we hope, is that children will define who they are. And in that clarity, when they're that young, before they go into bukatsu and, have to do juken and those things, they will be able to say, hey, because I'm quiet and I'm artistic, and I also like working alone, maybe I should join this kind of club, right? And if you can start at a young age exploration of who you are and the things that make you happy, it goes further, because we're not asking, I'm not coming to Japan and say you must change, you must not be uniform, you must, that's not my prerogative, that's not our place to come to a country and a civilization that's been functioning for millennia to say, well, you need to align with my goals. That's not what we're doing, to say, identify your individuality and break away. We're like, no, there are different groups. Maybe you don't fit in this group, but you fit in this group. Or this kind of personality would go best in this area, because we're having a declining population. There are companies all over this country that are shutting down because there's no one to work there, or young people. But what happens if these kids are artisans? We introduce artisans to them and they're like, oh, maybe I want to become an artisan, right? What if I'm not after chasing, this financial goal that other people set? This is what makes me happy, and this is how I can give back to my community, right? In 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 allowing children to identify these areas at the age group that we're allowing them to explore themselves, in the long term, it's not a matter of I'm an individual or I'm a member of this group, but it's like, how do I best impact my country? Like, these are the things that are good about me. This is how I want to impact my country and also impact the world, right? And if more people, and I think a lot of adults don't do this as well, like, they, either for work or whatever reason, they don't allow themselves the time to explore who they are, right? They follow a path that was set before them, and they're just unhappy, you know? And unhappy people are great at making other people unhappy, So,
Yeah,
I think that if we tend to, like, through these children, and I'm telling you, we're really learning a lot. But as an adult as well, we don't we don't know who we are. And because we don't know who we are, we follow a particular path. And we follow that path not because it aligns with us. And, miserable people.
yeah,
So not
yeah. I cannot agree more with you, because it's so very true. And yeah, what I like once again and love about what you're doing is that you go from the roots, of why. Let's say we need to do that, and how we can actually find ourselves. And I think that in addition to finding themselves and what they love to do, those kids, they also learn to appreciate what other people do, and give other people, well, let's say, the recognition and respect, not just because they have to do it, but because they feel that what other people do, well, actually deserves respect. And that's also a very important thing in creating communities that work and that stick together, that are open to, internally are open to the members, and also externally open to accepting new members as well. So I just cannot see any downsides of what you're doing. But at the same time, I wonder, well, you mentioned, of course, that nobody has said, no, I don't want to help. Everybody has been very supportive so far of what you're doing. But I just wonder, haven't there been any difficulties so far in you developing this project?
Okay. So I'm sure there are, but I will take a second while I'm speaking to kind of figure it out. I tend to focus on the positive a lot. So just give me a second. Um, well, our facilitators are foreigners. Like all of our facilitators are foreigners. As I told you, the curriculum development, she's Kenyan, but she came here for high school. Or legal person, she's also nationalized Japanese, but she's Jamaican and she went to law school here in Japan. Our marketing director she's Czech and she's been here since she's, I don't know, 19, 20 years old. Um, we have an African American who's doing our data analysis to make sure that we're tracking the children and we want to track their grades afterwards and how their critical analysis works after that. And we have Sachi who was born in Zimbabwe and came back to Japan when she was 10 years old and she's in charge of um, company connections or getting the children's internships after the program is done. So as a team, I am beyond grateful that these people have decided to say, hey, Sasha, we believe in this project. The only thing that we're going to have is funding. We haven't started asking people for funding yet. So, and that is to start at Ipan Shadan Hojin, which is not a full NPO, but is one of the types of nonprofit organizations. So, I haven't started asking for money yet. So maybe there'll be a hiccup for getting funding to be a legitimate nonprofit organization because I think when we spoke before, I mentioned that the beauty of this project is that it covers four of the SDGs that the United Nations has put in place. Um, and it covers a lot of the old Abenomics kind of projects as well, because half of our students are girls, and the other half, of course, we're on a binary level. We have boys and girls, half and half, in our classes. Um, and, for companies, if they want to say, hey, cover our SDG goals or chambers of commerce, you can align with our program. And that covers, four of the SDGs, four of the eight, 18, I'm not sure. Um, so funding might be an issue, but we haven't asked for funding yet because right now everybody's just volunteering their time. The second issue we might run into is that we might not have enough bilingual facilitators. The program is 100% Japanese. The children are 100% Japanese. So we need people who can speak Japanese to do the program, as of course we don't have funding. So we can't have translators. So I think those are probably going to be the two issues that we're going to run into if we want to expand the program. Well, without expanding the program, we need to get Ipan Shadan Hojin to make sure we're registered properly, because as I said, being legal is important. So, and then to make sure that we are able to continue the program long term, is we need to pay bilingual people or people who speak Japanese predominantly and understand some English. Those are the issues I think we might run into in the long term.
Right, yeah, because I think that there will be more foreigners and more foreign expatriates coming here who can actually help your kids with realizing who they are and what they want to do. But as you say, yeah, those foreigners, probably very few of them will be speaking Japanese. So I hope that at some point, the funding and so on will start coming. And of course, we will be very happy to help you promote the project so that it's not it won't be difficult for you to find funds for it.
Yeah, to be honest, my way of approaching things is that all good things will come.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe that all good things will come. And I think where you start at the where your root, your kake, your reason for doing it is right, things will happen the way it will happen. It might not happen how I want it to happen. So I'm just saying these are possible issues that will come up, but you know, according to my husband, it'll work out. So yeah, on the funding side, I mean, I'm sure that when I start sending out stuff, it's going to cause, take a little bit of time. But for me, it will happen. It will work out. The speaking, like, people in this forum, if they speak Japanese and are willing to come and speak to the children, and or their company would like to have the children come to their company to observe what happens for like a mini internship for these children, I think that would really, really be beneficial, because it's like, if you see it, it's possible. And my children, we're in Chiba, we're not in a major city. These children do not interact with CEOs or successful entrepreneurs. So having that, knowing that, oh, this person can do this. Oh, maybe my idea is worth fighting for, etc. So yeah, I would love to talk about Nagarayama Lead. Um, Hope to expand it in other places, but I think most companies, because it's like, low hanging fruits, give it to this registered nonprofit organization that is sponsored by a local government, and the board of education already gives legitimacy. So we're not just some fly by night group that is just saying, oh, give me money. It's not that. uh, we've done it on our own because we believe in the project. But yeah, going along, I mean, the more companies that are willing to, like, say, hey, I'll send my person to come and talk. Hey, let the kid come at the end of the program and pitch to our marketing department this idea. That would be, I mean, that would just make me so, like, warm inside. Yeah, so I would definitely appreciate any form of that kind of support, where it's not necessarily supporting the leadership team, but like getting these kids into these environments, and letting them see what stuff happens. So you know they're probably already different if they're in our program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So letting them see that they're different is okay.
Yeah, I think that there are quite a few people in this room actually who will be, happy to probably give a presentation, talk to your kids, and personally, I would be happy to have some of them, in my office, even though it's an open plan office. It is a shared office still, but if there is any way to help you, I'll be more than happy to do that. So, and yeah, that's
Thank you so much. I'm sure the children will get a blast, because I remember, like, in Jamaica we had summer jobs, right?
yeah,
We don't see that in Japan, where you get like a taste of the business world. And I think having that would, I don't know, like, and especially, like, you have these foreigners, they're speaking Japanese, they're speaking my language, they're trying to build my country. So when people come and, like, what to say, oh, these foreigners, it's like, which foreigners are you speaking about? You mean
yeah.
these ones that have helped me? It would be different to, like, villainize someone if you've actually had an interaction with them.
Yeah, indeed. It humanizes everybody, in fact, and doesn't create any walls or barriers between people from different cultural or national backgrounds. So, yeah, that's a very good way to go about it. Normalize things, humanize people. And one more thing, Sasha, that I really love about your program is that you try to involve the parents as well. And because I have seen how parents are actually the ones who push their kids into direction which the kids don't enjoy that much, actually. But giving those parents a view of how, even though their kid doesn't follow, let's say, follow the direction the parents took or the way the parents chose, there are still ways to be successful. And at the end of the day, being successful actually means that you don't have to follow somebody else's path. You can choose your own path and do the best you can there. So realizing that, because I think that here, and I have seen this even in my family, in my closest, let's say, environment, that sometimes parents are really very, very, let's say, determined to choose the path they want their kids to follow. And that's not the way it should be, actually, at least from my point of view. And that's why I appreciate the fact that you want to show the parents that there are very different, or many different ways actually of being successful here too.
I think like I will always say everybody is doing the best they can at that moment with the information they have,
Yes.
right? And if you start knowing that people are doing the best they can with the information where they are, this is another Henry. I'm so grateful to my husband. This is another like a culmination of our conversation. But if that is true, it means that if you educate people where they are, you might be able to make them to help them to make more informed decisions, right? There's a reason you have oyabaka. There's a reason why that there's a reason why that is a term that is used, because as parents we are totally irrational for a lot of things. I can give you stories, but I wouldn't stop today. So there are very irrational things that we think, or irrational um, ways in which, as parents, we worry about our children in what we define as success, because what we want is for our child to be able to do what they want to do and be successful. And success for a parent, right, is going to look very different for a child, because that child is also an individual with their own thought processes, their own things that they want to do, right? And as parents, we can't see that, because back in our day, this was what made sense, and this is what gave us success. So the reason we bring these parents in is because if they know that, like for example, Sachi, her company is called Wasabi. She grew up in Zimbabwe until she was 10, right? So culturally, she's from Zimbabwe, although both parents are Japanese. She came to Japan at grade 10, which is about what my daughter is. So grade 4, she couldn't pass junior high school entrance. And then she couldn't pass high school entrance. And then she told the process of, very, very intense study to get into university. And now she has employees in 3 countries. I think it's 3 countries with diverse backgrounds. And she's doing amazing things. Those parents needed to hear that she failed more than once and failed badly. But at the end, she was successful. We had another lady, she works at Wisdom Toolkit. Her parents, her grandfather is a national treasure for koto playing. And her journey was unconventional, and she didn't fit in different places, but because her background is so important, she's marketing these Japanese, because these artisans are amazing but their marketing skills are horrible. So she is this marketing Japanese lady who had a very different growth, and parents needed to hear that. When the politician spoke, the first thing he said is, I wish I had this when I was younger, so that I could know or have an idea of what success looks like to me. She's one of the youngest now Chiba councilmen at only 32 or 33, I can't remember right now. And the boys in the class, their eyes lit up that oh, I'm doing this thing now that successful people wanted to do when they were younger. And I was just like, whoa. It has an impact that the parents are hearing that this is possible, that the parents are knowing that the decisions that to align their children with this program to bring out their authentic self is important. So that's why we have the parents, and we'll forever have the parents, because I think when the politician came, the parents actually, quite a few parents actually came to the session, and there was a dad in the back, and his hand was across his chest, and he's like, "Oh, naruhodo, naruhodo," that kind of,
Right.
and that made an impact as a dad, seeing this politician who just won his seat in Chiba, who is busy helping other local politicians, still turn up to talk to these children and tell them what they're doing, puts them on the right path. So that's why we bring the parents into the situation.
Great. Yuka, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. I need to move to the quieter place. Thank you, Sasha. I love your story and the energy that you have presented your story with. So when I heard the term, the city name, Sasha, the Nagarayama, it dawned on me. I think Nagarayama is also known for like a special, like government policy, right? Because
Yes.
I've heard very good things about the city and then what they're doing to attract the newer population. So the program that you are sort of creating, do you think it only it's the city that it makes work, or it can work in anywhere in Japan, or maybe even outside of Japan to that effect?
Okay, so we all live in Japan,
Right.
and fortunately or unfortunately, there is a thing where they're risk averse. But if a
Definitely.
city, right, sees a
Yeah.
city that is ranking number one in so many different projects, adapts these projects, and as I said, we're doing data tracking, right, to say like how are the students in class, how are their grades, how are their critical thinking. It won't be like, oh, everybody's gonna adopt this program right now, but I think in the long term, because of the reason, and if you look at every trend that the government is trying to implement, it will be adopted. I don't know how long it will take, but I do think it's important. So we're going to continue to push to try to see if we can expand the program. But right now, Nagarayama is doing all the things to attract new families and supporting both parents working. And I don't know if you saw on the news last night where the government is going to, in October, stop the cap for both parents working, and still only tax the one person's salary. Those kinds of things, those kinds of trends are why cities might adopt this program, because the school system itself cannot really radically change that quickly. And this program is I would say a great addition to the education system of children. So I think it will expand. I don't know how long it will take, but yeah, I think so.
Okay, so great, thank you. Because I missed the first part, only 5 minutes. But so you have selected Nagarayama intentionally, is that right? It's not because you just happen to be there.
No, it's we live here. So, we've
Oh,
lived here.
so
Yeah, we've lived here for
ah,
13 years, and our city has been so amazing to us. Like our city is just badass. So we live here. My husband and I have always been like doing stuff in our city, with our Jijikai. Um, so it's an extension of giving back to our city. Maybe if we were in another city, we would have done the same thing, but it's just like kind of help where you live kind of stuff, and we just happen to live here.
okay, so that's what the title "Giving Back." I'm sorry, I missed that. Sorry about that, Maya and Sasha. Now,
No
yeah,
problem.
but I just have to add though, Maya has a knack in finding great speaker, and then she just continued, to amaze me. So thank you both, and thank you.
Yuka, you're giving me too much credit. No, but yeah, thank you. It's not me, it's the speakers actually who come. Somehow we just happen to meet, and I'm grateful that the speakers, they agree to come and talk, be our speakers, in fact. Yeah, and Bruce, good morning. Thank you for coming up.
Just a few kind of like shout outs. The concept of bubbles. Yeah, like completely agree with it. And, uh, so one of the questions you get asked is why did you come to Japan? Actually, the major reason I came to Japan was to do Aikido, which I did for several years. And there's a couple of concepts that in Aikido and I haven't done it for a long time, but and one of them is like you can take the smallest change and really just like -1% to 1%, 2% to 10%. And as foreigners, we're essentially a rounding error of a rounding error. But one of the things I have a concept of Japan is that it's this really old, beautiful machine that has a very great difficulty in dealing with how the outside world. And there's a large interest in how does Japan transition from that machine to being part of the old world. At the same time, um, it has to be done in a way that's like it's okay. We're gonna you're and not lose the sense of Japan. There's a great, I think, a cultural fear amongst Japanese where how we're not going to lose Japan. And what Sasha's doing, and I've got something similar, which could really, I think, and this is like 10 or 20 years, really make a major difference in how Japan did becoming bilingual. And one of the things that I'm an educator, education is my passion, but yeah, how does Japan spend 7 years if you graduate from high school or university? If you graduate from university, you've had 7 years of English, and look at the English level. And that in itself is like so. I think regarding your funding, I think you're probably not going to have too much of a problem if you find the right people. But things like this are going to be very, very valuable, and um, over time, it can make a big change. So anyway, that's my comment. And Sasha, I'm just interested in your feedback.
Yeah. So as I said, I grew up in Jamaica in a third world country, and as a child, I remember all of the technologies we had were like Sony, and all of these like very you know forward thinking companies were or products came from Japan, right? So that left an impact in me. If you follow, for me, like I'm upset. I'm curious. I'm naturally curious. And I've been watching how Japan has been looking at the integration of AI. So when the CEO from ChatGPT only spoke in the US, and his first trip outside of the US was to come to Japan and not speak to the ministers, but spoke to Kishida-san, the prime minister, right? And then 2 nights ago, Sam Chapman came back again, and he was speaking to university students. You can kind of see the writing on the wall that Japan wants to be one of the forefronts of the integration of AI into the learning model, right? And this was on, I think, the news on last night or the night before. And if you look at that, it means that the education system currently, if they integrate AI where they don't have to actually change the language, because I have a personal bias. I think when your language disappears, your culture disappears with it. So I understand. I might not agree with it, but I understand why Japanese people have held on to their language in its purest form and hasn't integrated additional languages in the model. But I think just integrating AI may be what they're doing. Yeah. I don't know if Bruce agrees, but I think so.
I agree with you, Sasha. I
Um,
think that was a great explanation. Thank you.
I think one of the things is, a lot of us, I'm not sure what percentage, I'm going on my second decade. Some of you here, 3, 4 decades. I, coming from a country where my culture is slowly aligning with others, I have an affinity to people who want to hold what they have very close. But how do I say this? With the impact that we have in Japan, the thing that English does, it allows us to be able to communicate with more people. And I think as long as the people who are saying, hey, let's communicate with me in my language, if a lot of us also are able to communicate with Japanese in their own language with some level of fluency, I think that builds credence or, strength to what we're saying. Because if we're saying, hey, learn my language and we don't speak Japanese, I know a lot of Japanese people are like, mm. And I know Japanese people who speak English fluently, and you will not know because you don't speak to them in their own language. And I think the reason why the LEAD program is we're not doing a bilingual program. We're not doing a program where we're teaching children English. We're like, hey, this is where you at. You are here. This is your language. we as foreigners, we're going to meet you where you are. And I think if there's more integration where we meet the locals where they are, I don't know if it's a fact, but maybe it will make a difference in how they interact.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I don't. The thing, like, every Japanese has to learn English. Economically, I think if 30% of the Japanese population had, that would make a huge difference. I think that just this inability to speak English has got, and it was a white paper by the American Chamber of Commerce about this was one of the factors.
Thank you, Bruce. If I can share just a few words, we need to actually close the room. But if you allow me to share my experience, until last year, I used to work in the travel and tourism industry. And, the companies that I worked with, they were mostly doing outbound travel from Japan to other countries. And to me, the striking thing was that they always get extremely well prepared before they go to any country. Any other country. So they read about the history of that country. They read about the culture of that country. They read about what is happening there at the moment. And even though they don't speak the language, they actually are very open, to everything that is that they learn about. And I can say that, of course, we have a very small portion of the population here in Japan that goes overseas. That's, I guess it's about maybe 14 to 15%. But I can say that those people, there is a lot of hope there because they learn a lot. And even though they don't speak the language of the countries, the country they visit, none of those languages actually, they are quite culturally, let's say, flexible and fluent. So I know that, of course, we see different parts of society depending on where we work, what our jobs are, and so on. But I can say that there is a lot of hope there. There is actually a lot that is happening. And probably getting people, to travel more is one of the ways to work in this direction. So thank you very much for your points. And Sasha, if you have a few words before we close it, please go ahead.
I just want to thank everyone for listening to me blubber for a little bit this morning. I hope it makes you feel empowered to go out and impact the world that you're in, wherever you are, and know that no matter how small it may seem, having that impact is important because as a pebble, you might not make a big difference, but if all of us are doing little by little, will make the change that we want to see, and that's just like acceptance, and that's true acceptance from our adopted home. And if anybody wants to work or speak with Nagareyama Lead, please feel free to contact me or Maya or find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I hope to work with you and hope that you feel inspired to make a difference. I think that's it.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Bruce and Yuka, Tim, and everybody who is in the room now, who stayed with us. So we encourage you to connect with Sasha. You can connect with Henry Seals, her husband as well, because they're working together. And of course, I hope that we can continue this conversation in the future. So to all of you, have a great day and enjoy the rest of the week.